Hello guys and welcome back for another video. This is the third one from the series in which I'm trying to provide some more information related to the Guild Wars in Where Winds Meet, as the league season will be starting soon and it would be nice to know at least the basics. In the last two videos I went over the ideal Mystic skills setup for the 30v30 game mode, or the so-called Wars, as well as the inner ways for the different builds and their value in that mass PvP game mode. Today we are taking another step forward and we will take a look on the different weapons which will be useful for your team composition, which ones are better suited for big scale fights and which ones are more isolated and focused on single targets. Additionally, we will speak about the synergy when it comes to bombs, because this is the main source of your damage to kill enemies, and of course we will speak how to create those bombs and potentially how to avoid them. So without further ado, let's take a quick look on the guild section, because there we will be able to find under techniques and martial teaching the different ultimates for all the different weapons. Of course, needless to say that those bonuses on top for damage reduction, damage and HP and so on are mandatory for you to have if you want to play Wars. For some reason with the last patch they got reset, but definitely I'm trying to get them back on track so we can have all the bonuses. So the first weapon that we will have to speak about is the Nameless Sword. Nameless Sword in Wars is pretty much the highest DPS because it hits every single target in front, as you will be charging heavy attacks which are technically waves, and those waves are dealing massive amounts of damage. Now the ultimate for this weapon and all the other weapons will have a cooldown of 120 seconds, so I'm mentioning it now and I would not repeat it again, I guess. But of course the effects are different. So the one for the Nameless Sword would provide the whole party around you, even people that are not in your party, a chi shield for 8 seconds. Now what does that mean? Well, you are basically having a chi immunity, which makes you impossible to be executed, because you can only get executed if you don't have any chi, or meaning that you are exhausted. So with that in mind, this means that you cannot be interrupted if you are channeling something like a heavy attack from the Nameless Sword itself, or maybe the Dragon Head or anything else, and this creates a really good defense on the people that are using this chi shield. Of course, if you have a lot of swords, let's say that you have 5 of them, you can technically teach your players to use the chi shield over and over again, so you can have the multiple applicable things that would defend you, while of course if they all use it at the same time it would be a bit of a waste. Then we go to the Nameless Spear, again the 120 seconds. Swing the long spear on the spot, creating a hemisphere barrier at your position for 10 seconds. Allies within the range, so basically even people outside of your group again, would gain immunity to silence effect by mystic skills and take 10% less damage for attacks 5 meters away and 20% less damage for attacks 10 meters away. Now we don't really have a system to tell the distance in the game, but I'm pretty sure that most of the times you would be decreasing the attacks from 10 meters away, because most of the umbrella and sword players would be standing somewhere around there. So again, a really nice tool to use for your clumps or for your bombs. And of course your teammates would definitely get a really big value from this. Another thing that probably doesn't make too much sense right now if you never played Wars is why this silence effect is so important. But if you go back to the video about the mystic skills, you would know that there is the Lion's Roar, which applies silence effect, and this is probably the most common and most used ability in the Wars. So definitely this is a big game changer when it comes to defense. Then we go to the next one. We have the Strategic Sword. It's really similar to the heavy attack of the Strategic Sword, the charged heavy attack, because basically you dash forward and you create a place, let's say, where consistently there will be hits, and those hits will be staggering people. They would doing some damage. Of course, it's not that much about the damage, but it's mostly about the effects, because for 10 seconds this area will be affected. And then as we can see here, enemies within the area take continuous damage and are inflicted with weaken and vulnerability. Effects persist for 6 seconds after leaving the area, so even if you get away you would still have them. Weakened reduces the movement speed by 40% and prevents you from sprinting. And then vulnerability, each stack of it will increase the damage taken by 3%, stacking up to 8 times. So this means that if you use a bomb, and we're gonna speak about the bombs a bit later, but if you use a bomb and then you use this ability there as well, not only that you would make sure that those enemies are really hard getting out of it, but also they would be getting quite a lot of damage, especially if they stack the maximum stacks of 8, which will be 24% more damage. This is really, really huge, and it's probably a mandatory thing to have in your group composition. If not even maybe 2 or 3 of them. Of course, this depends on the guilds themselves. They provide their team rosters and so on. The next one is the Heaven Quicker Spear. Swing the long spear with full strength, dealing damage to units hit and launching them airborne, gaining super armor for 8 seconds. While the super armor is active, deal 30% more damage, take 20% less damage, and become immune to silence inflicted by mystic skills. Now, all this sounds super nice, but the only problem here is that this is a single target ultimate. And why is it a problem? Well, simply because you cannot apply those effects to any of your teammates. But as we mentioned a couple of times, and I will say it again, there is a 1v1 performance in the guild's 30v30 match. So basically, if you have a duelist who is using the Heaven Quicker Spear, this would be the perfect ultimate for his duel. Of course, he would want to save his ultimate so he doesn't waste it before the duel. The duel is happening at the 20-minute mark, and this would be an amazing tool to probably have one step forward than your enemies into winning the duel. Then we have the next one, which is the Panacea fan. This one is the healing fan because there are 2 of them. So this one is the healing one. And the ultimate says that wave the fan to release a stream of following water, continuously healing nearby allies over 6 seconds. You also gain super armor for 8 seconds. Now this doesn't sound any different than the usual Q ability of the fan. And of course, if you play on console, I'm not really sure the name of it, but you know what I mean. The only difference that I can tell by the looks of the video on top is that the range is a bit bigger. And of course, gaining the super armor would make sure that you can cast also other abilities. Super armor makes you, invulnerable to crowd controls, basically. You can still receive damage, but you cannot be, let's say, staggered. You cannot be, like stunned and stuff. I believe that you can still be stunned, but the stagger is the most crucial one. So if you use the if you use the ultimate, you can also use your other abilities to heal. Then we have the Inkwell fan. This is the DPS one. So you basically draw 4 wind walls forward to form a square wind zone that lasts for 12 seconds, hindering enemies' movement. So basically, we all know at this point the wind shield barrier, or whatever you want to call it, or the Yasuo wall if you play League of Legends. But here, technically, you create 4 and you are making a square that can lock people in. The idea, of course, is to lock people that are opponents, and most of the times you would want to use it for a bomb. We can already combine it, let's say, ideally with the strategic sword like we spoke earlier, and then you have the people inside, they cannot really move out. Pretty nice. Then we have the Soul Shade Umbrella, which is basically the healing one. So this is, again, a weapon that can be used both for DPS and for healing. Toss the umbrella to grant nearby allies feathery effect for 12 seconds, which is increasing their movement speed by 50%, restores 15 endurance per second, and removes the endurance cost for sprinting and multi-jumps. Now, this might sound a bit off, like it doesn't give you any damage, it doesn't give you any heal, any defense, but at the same time, it provides a good amount of speed, and this speed can be used for carrying the tree of the opponents, or maybe even spamming a lot of heavy attacks with the Nameless Sword because they require a lot of endurance. And as you can see here, 15 endurance per second is quite a big number. So this is one of the things that you can use. Of course, healers are anyway running with a fan and umbrella, so having those umbrellas pumping the ultimate for the Nameless Swords could be a nice thing. Then we have the Vernal Umbrella. Now, of course, we have another umbrella down here, but this one is still not released. So we're gonna stop it at the Vernal one. This is the DPS umbrella in the current patch of the game that we have in the global version. So it basically grants stealth to nearby allies for 12 seconds. The effect ends immediately upon dealing or taking damage, sorry. While stealth is active, you gain 1 stack of build momentum per second, stacking up to 5 times, and each stack gives you increased damage dealt by 4%. Then this effect remains for 10 seconds after leaving stealth. Now technically, you can use this if you are playing into the jungle, if you play into the side lanes, or basically any group that is away from the fight for some reason. And of course, it's self-explanatory. You just stealth your teammates or your group, then you try to flank the opponents, and of course, you do more damage, you have more movement speed, they would be surprised, and everything is pretty simple and clear. Then we go a bit under. We have 2 weapons that we have to speak about. Because this rope and this one are still not into the game, like I said. So we have the Inferno Twin Blades, an extremely powerful weapon that is mainly used for assassins, either into the bombs or used outside of the bombs just chasing healers. So the ultimate actually is 90 seconds. I'm not sure if the umbrellas, I think it's 120 for them. Yeah, so here this one is pretty interesting why it's on 90 seconds, but okay. Unleash 2 white slashes forward, dealing massive damage. You gain full Karmic Flames. Restore Karmic Flame is the ultimate of the... Okay, it's not an ultimate, but it's on the place of the heavy attack of your Twin Blades, and when you use it, you are uninterruptible by stagger. You can only get stunned. So you just become crazy, like imagine it like this, and you just chase people. So when you use the ultimate, you gain your R ability at full stage basically, and then restores 10 karmic flames per second for 10 seconds, which is basically keeping you non-stop into that phase. Like you cannot lose it if you are hitting people. During the Wrathful form, during this stage, you become immune to silence inflicted by Mystic skills, so you cannot be silenced, you cannot be staggered. The only thing that can happen is someone to stun you, but there is not that many stuns, to be fair. Additionally, any hit by the Blade of the Heaven's Wrath cannot be healed for 6 seconds. So in other words, if you start this ultimate and you start chasing people to hit them, like this guy up there, this person cannot heal himself for 6 seconds after your last hit. And of course, this is huge because with the addition of AoE attacks like this one that is spinning, you can probably hit a couple of people. And if you time it correctly with your bombs, I mean, it could be devastating. We are talking about 100% healing mitigation. That's just crazy. Of course, the question is, can you actually survive in that time if you get focused by a lot of people? Because if you are doing it in the middle of the bomb, it might be a bit crazy, but still it's really, really powerful. And then we have another weapon of the bamboo cut. We have the rope dart, and again 90 seconds cooldown. I didn't read my lesson here, guys, sorry. Throw the rope dart forward to pull a distant target in front of you, dealing damage and inflicting immobilize and silence to them for 3 seconds. When the immobilize ends, the target endurance is reduced to 0 and the movement speed is decreased by 50% for 3 seconds. Now this technically sounds really nice, but the problem is that hitting someone with the rope dart ability in the war at 30v30 is a nightmare. I mean, so far I think I've played more than 15 or I don't know, close to 20 matches, and I never saw a single player with rope dart, like not a single one. Ideally, it sounds nice because if you hit a healer, he would probably be dead. He would have to burn his Serene Breeze. But in general, I think that if we look at to a value for the whole team, there would be definitely better choices. Even going Nameless Sword and just using the ultimate of it and nothing else would still probably be better than this one. I hope that they would change it. I think the rope dart is a really cool weapon, but I don't think that this current ultimate is really suitable, to be fair. And like I said, those 2 weapons here are still not out. We would be getting them later on. They have cool ultimates. And here on the bottom, We also have two ultimates which are kind of nice, but only the Thundercry Blade or the Mo Blade is in the game right now. I think that this is it says Formation Breakthrough, but I think that this is also not into the game. Or maybe the Mo Blade has two ultimates, but I've never seen this one. And then we have this one with the Katana, maybe? I'm not sure. But those two are still also not in the game, I believe. So the Mo Blade, this is the bomb creator, basically. That's why we left it for dessert, even though it's also on the very bottom. Stab the Mo Blade into the ground, gathering airflow to pull in enemies with radius of 8 meters, and then spin the Mo Blade to unleash a powerful sweeping strike, dealing massive damage. To extend, just hold the pull, like hold the key to extend the duration, and the pull basically would also get extended. It works the same way as the Q ability again. If you are on console, I'm not sure the name of it, but it has a bit bigger range, and it also has this, of course, nice looking visual. Now this is the bomb creator because, as you can imagine, if you are a tank and you are sitting in front of 10 or 15 people and you decide to make this ability work, then all of those guys will be kind of sucked into you. And then, of course, your teammates would like to follow with all of their ultimates. And this is basically the definition of a bomb, or at least how we call it also in other games like New World. So again, the idea is to combine a couple of ultimates, to combine the damage, to make sure that the enemy is as heavily as possible, staggered and silenced, staggered and extra damage taken by killing their resistances or whatever you have in store. And therefore, this is extremely powerful, and you need a couple of them. You cannot just go with one Mo Blade because, as you see, 120 seconds is a lot. Plus, you would have attacking and defending teams. So I would say that this is one of the most common weapons into the game. Apart from the healing, of course, because you have technically 6 groups and you need at least one healer in a group. So that would probably be the second most used weapon in the game mode of the Guild Wars. And just making sure to not skip a weapon, because I saw it after recording, we have to take a look as well at the Stormbreaker Spear, because this one is one of the key components of your survivability when it comes to surviving a bomb. As we can see, shake the spear to send out sound waves, granting nearby allies tenacity for 8 seconds. You also gain immunity to silence inflicted by Mystic Skills and take 60% less damage for 10 seconds. Now this one is wild because, first of all, it gives you tenacity, which means that you cannot be sucked into the clump of the enemies, and of course you cannot get staggered with tenacity on you for those 8 seconds. Plus you gain the immunity to silence effects, something similar if not even the same as the Nameless Spear. For some reason the game is loading too long. But yeah, as we can see here, we also have the immunity to silence effects. But as I said as well, you personally, I think, gain those 60% reduced damage. I'm not sure if it works to everyone, but if it's everyone, I didn't test that one, but if it works on everyone, that would be just heavenly broken. But I think the 60% less damage is only for you. But regardless of that, it's still pretty good, and it's mandatory for the so-called declump, or let's say surviving the enemy's bombs. Alright guys, so I think that's basically it when it comes to the ultimates. If I have to choose, I would probably go with quite a lot of Nameless Swords, not because of the ultimate only, but like I said, also the damage is quite nice. If you have probably around 5 to 6 of them on the attacking side or even the defending side, you would get this chi shield quite often because you can rotate between your players. The Nameless Spear, I would probably go for around 2 to 3 on attacking or defending side. Ideally, you want to pair them with the Nameless Sword. For the strategic one, I think that you can use at least one, but maybe up to 2 maximum, because going for a 3 is a bit too much, I think. Usually the strategic sword is not so common in the Guild Wars when it comes to usage of the weapon itself. It's just for the ultimate. Heaven Quicker Spear, same thing. It's maximum to 1 if this is your 1v1 performer, because otherwise this ultimate doesn't provide any utility to the whole team, so it's kind of useless. Panacea fan, of course, you already have it. As I mentioned, you have to have healers. There is just no way you're gonna play without healers, so this is a no-brainer. And the same goes for the Soul Shade Umbrella. It's again a healer weapon. When it comes to the Inkwell fan, I would say probably you want to have at least one, maybe two, something similar to the Strategic Sword. And of course, mainly you use it not only for the box, but also to boost your damage of the Umbrella players, because the Umbrella is one of the highest DPS when it comes to a single target DPS. So if you want to focus on the towers, or if you want to focus on the goose, this is a really, really high damage. And of course, if you have the freedom to shoot from distance, this also makes it quite safe. And then if we go down to the Twin Blades, as we already mentioned, this is a crazy good ultimate, especially if you are chasing healers or if you try to kill people into clumps. I would say that you need at least 2 of them, so you can bomb consistently with their ultimates. But of course, if you have more players that are good with those weapons, probably you can even slot for like 3 to 4. And back to the Maw Blade, which I already mentioned, one of the most important ones. Here, I would not say big number, but I think that hitting 6 or 8 of them is pretty much a safe spot, because like I said, you need them on attack and on defense at the same time, as otherwise you would be just trying to chase people and probably you would never kill anyone if you don't have this sucking power ability. So that was it, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I will continue with a few more guides when it comes to the Guild Wars and how to understand them a bit better. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I would gladly answer them. And of course, if you have any ideas or something that you really want to know, please let me know and I will make sure to answer. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys on the next one.